Students, in previous class we discussed about light and reflection of light at plane surfaces. In this class we are going to discussing about coal and petroleum. Okay, so what is the use of this coal and petroleum we will learn in this class. So before going to discussing this coal and petroleum, we will discuss about one topic. So Dikshita was taking down a pickle jar and the jar was on the topmost section of this shelf. Okay, so Dikshita is taking down the pickle jar, but the jar was on the topmost section of the shelf. Then grandfather is saying, Dikshita's grandfather is saying, be careful, it may fall down and break. Okay, so Dikshita grandfather saying, be careful, it may fall down and break. Then Dikshita giving reply to her grandfather, no, I am taking down a plastic jar, it won't break. Then Dikshita said, I am taking down plastic jar, so it won't break. Okay, she said like this. Dikshita realized that the grandfather was thinking of the clay jars that were used in olden days. Nowadays, plastic jars were used and they are unbreakable. Dikshita thinking that his grandfather is thinking that Dikshita is trying to take out the clay jar, but she is not taking out the clay jar. She is taking plastic jars. Okay, nowadays plastic jars are used and they are unbreakable. So what else has changed? She wondered. Help Dikshita to find out. So Dikshita is surprised, means the articles used in olden days and the articles used in nowadays are different. So much changes came same between the articles used in olden days and nowadays. Okay, so what type of articles are used in olden days and nowadays, that we will write in the table 1 once you help to Dikshita and fill the table 1. Okay, so what is our topic name? Articles, identifying articles and materials used for various purpose. Okay, what is our topic name? Identifying articles and materials used for various purpose. Have you look at table 1? Column A gives the name of the some activities and items. Okay, so this table 1 gives the names of some activities and items. Ask your grandparents or other older people about the names of the materials then used for the items given in column A, and write them in the column B, then in the column C, and write the names of material being used as present. Few examples are given to guide you. So once you see the table 1, okay, in the table 1 in column A some of the articles are given. So that articles made up of which materials in before 30 and 40 years ago. Okay, so in a table 1 activity A. Okay, so in table 1 column A, once you see some of the articles are given. So to prepare that articles 30-40 years back, which type of materials are used, that you write in column B. And in column C, to prepare the articles or and materials nowadays, which materials are using, right? Okay, so 30-40 years back to prepare that article, which materials they used. If you don't know this, then ask your elders and collect the information right in the table 1. Okay, so once we will discuss. First article, containers for storing pickles. To store the pickles they need containers. So 30-40 years back they used clay jars, but nowadays which materials they were using? Plastic containers. Okay, next, packing food for a journey. So when they were going to journey, so they need some food, no? So how did they pack the food? So to pack the food for a journey in 30-40 years back they used copper tiffin boxes, but nowadays we use plastic tiffin boxes. Okay, next, water pipes in the house. Articles means water pipes will be there, no? Water pipes are used in the house. To prepare the water pipes used in the house 30-40 years back they used iron, but nowadays plastics, PVC. Okay, plastic pipes they are using, and some are using iron pipes also. Name of the article, hair combs. So 30-40 years back they made the hair combs with wood, but nowadays they made from plastic. Okay, next, vessels for cooking food. What is the name of the article? Vessels for cooking food. Okay, so to cook the food 30-40 years back they used copper vessels, but nowadays they are using steel utensils. Okay, next, fuel to cook the food. So uh, fuel, which fuel they use it to cook the food? 30-40 years back they used coal and wood, but nowadays LPG cylinders they were using. Next article, fuel used in train engine. So 30-40 years back they used coal as a fuel in train engine, but nowadays they were using diesel or electricity. Next, luggage for carrying clothes. Okay, so here which luggage for carrying clothes, 30-40 years back they used metal trunks, but nowadays they use plastic suitcases. Next, water buckets. Okay, water buckets. So which type of material used to make the water buckets in that 30-40 years back? Iron parts or clay parts, but nowadays they were using plastic buckets, plastic vessels. Next, water storage in houses. To store the water in houses, 30-40 years back they used clay pots. Nowadays they were using plastic buckets. Next, construction materials. To construct the materials, 40 years back they used bricks, sand, clay, but nowadays bricks, sand, cement they were using. Next, jewelry. 30-40 years back they used gold and silver. Nowadays also they were using gold, silver and platinum. Next, furnitures like chairs and cots. In 30-40 years back they were using wood, but nowadays they were using plastic and wood. Okay, from activity 1 you have a long list of materials. Some of them like wood, metals means iron, silver, gold etc. were used 10 years, 50 years, even 100 years ago. Okay, do your grandparents remember using the plastics when they were young? Once you ask them, no, they not used plastic when they were young. Okay, so from this activity you have a long list of materials. In that some of them are like wood, okay, metals means iron, silver, gold, okay, that were used 10 years back, 50 years back, even 100 years back also. Okay, so do your grandparents remember using the plastic materials when they were young? So when they were young your grandparents they used plastic materials. Once you ask them they will say no, we did. Okay, they will say no means they did not use that plastic materials when they were young. Okay, how many of these materials were available 10 years ago? Plastic, iron, gold and silver articles were available 10 years ago. How many of these materials were available 50 years ago? So the articles made up of wood, iron, silver, gold are available 50 years ago, and also articles made up of clay. Okay, these also available, but there is no plastic articles 50 years ago. Next, how many of these materials were available 100 years ago? Okay, so the articles made up of clay, wood, iron, silver, gold were available 100 years ago. So in case of you have any doubts, you can take the help of your history teacher and your elders too. So you find that some materials such as wood and gold that are used today were also used even thousands of years ago. Okay, so some materials like wood and gold that we are using today were also used even 1,000 years ago. Okay, this wood, gold will be there, no, nowadays that we are using, no, not only nowadays, that used 1,000 years back also. Okay, but other like plastic are recent origin, but plastic materials are that are recent origin means that discovered recently. Okay, so the process in science and technology gives us a new products every day. So sorry, the progress in science, okay, the progress in science and technology gives a new product every day. The branch of science which deals with the material is called as material science. Okay, the progress in science means, or science and technology daily gives us a new products every day. Okay, the branch of science which deals with materials, it is called as material science. Now we will discuss one more topic, sources of materials. Okay, so we know that we get wood from trees. Okay, we will get wood from trees. Do you know that we get metals like iron, copper from their ores? What is used to make plastic or glass? So do you remember reading about the petrochemicals in the chapter on synthetic fibers and plastic? How do we obtain various materials? So how are these obtained? uh, Now we will discuss in table 2. Okay, so we get wood from trees and we get metals like iron and copper from their ores. So what is used to make the plastic or glass? So how the plastic is prepared, that we learn in the previous chapter, means in that synthetic fibers and plastic chapter. So how these materials are prepared, how these are obtained, that is given in table 2. Now we will discuss. Okay, so in this table two columns are there. In one column material is there, and in second column how it is obtained is there. So what is that material? Glass. Okay, first material is glass. Okay, how this glass was obtained? Okay, this glass is obtained by melting sand with other materials and then cooking it rapidly. Okay, so by melting the sand with other materials, okay, and by cooling, this glass will form. Okay, so by melting the sand with other materials and then cooking it by rapidly, then we will get glass. How we will get clay? By mixing the minerals kaolinite with water. Okay, by mixing the mineral, okay, mineral kaolinite with water, we will get clay. How we will get wood? Wood we will get dried up from dried up trees. Okay, when the trees were dried, we will get wood. How we will get plastics? Plastics we will get from petrochemicals. How we will get metals? Metals we are getting from their respective ores. Okay, so after looking at the table 2, you find that some materials used earlier were obtained from soil like clay, sand, water, ores, etc. Okay, after looking at the table 2, we find that the materials used earlier were obtained from soil, means like clay, sand, water, ores, etc. The soil, water and air were not only the sources of materials used earlier, but also the sources of energy. The soil, water, air there no, that are not only the sources of materials that are used earlier, but also these are used as the sources of energy. Okay, so now plastic has replaced many materials used earlier. So in the place of these all materials, nowadays plastics we are using. Petrochemicals are used for making of plastics that are obtained from the petroleum. So for the in the place of this clay, wood, iron articles, nowadays we are using that plastic. These plastics are made from petrochemicals. These petrochemicals are used in the making of plastics. These petrochemicals are obtained from the petroleum. Okay, many materials that we use for different purpose today come from various sources present in the nature. So the material which we are using in our daily life for different purpose, that are coming from the various sources present in the nature. What are that? From which sources that are coming from soil, water, air, petrol, etc. These are called as natural resources. Okay, so many materials that we use for different purpose today come from the various sources that are present in the nature. So what are that sources? The sources are soil, water, air, petrol, etc. So these are called as natural resources. We will discuss about exhaustible and inexhaustible resources. Okay, so what is the meaning of exhaustible and what is the meaning of inexhaustible resources? Now we will discuss. Now we have to think about the few questions to understand and about the need and importance of natural resources. Okay, now we will think about the few questions to understand about the need and importance of natural resources. Will the above resources be available for all the time to come? Okay, so will the above resources that be available for all the time to come? Okay, no, in that some are exhausted by human activities if they are not properly utilized, and some are not exhausted. Okay, so upside we discussed some resources, like soil, water, air, petrol. These are called as natural resources. These resources are available for all the time to come? No. Okay, that some are exhausted by human activities. If they are not properly utilized, means if the human they not use these resources properly, that will be completed, means that will be exhausted, means that will be complete. Okay, and some are not exhausted, means in that above resources some we can use completely, some are we cannot use completely. Okay na? So what are so which are using completely, that are called as exhaustible, which are not using completely, that are called as inexhaustible. So what are that exhaustible and inexhaustible, we will discuss in next two topics. So will we ever run out of air? No, air is present is unlimited quantity, so it cannot be exhausted, means uh, air, so much air, amount of air is available, no? So we cannot use the air completely. So will we ever run out of water? Okay, so no, earth surface contains 70% of water, so it is unlimited, so it cannot be exhausted. So if you use the water completely, that water will be completed? No, it not completed. Why? Because our earth surface contains 70% of water, so it is unlimited, so it cannot be exhausted. Exhausted means using completely, so we cannot use the water completely. So do we have unlimited supply of coal and petroleum? Do we have unlimited supply of coal and petroleum? No, we don't have the unlimited supply of coal and petroleum. If we continuously using these resources, one day they may be exhausted. Okay, so like water and air and sunlight, we not have the unlimited supply of coal and petroleum. Why? Because if we use these resources completely, it will be exhausted only within one day. Can these resources be exhausted by human activities? Yes, some may be exhausted by human activities like coal and petroleum and natural gas. It is unlikely that we will ever be able to exhaust some resources like air or water. We can even depend on the sun for solar energy in the future. Hence, these are called as inexhaustible resources or renewable resources. So, here this oil, water, air, petrol, coal. Okay, so these all we are using, no? So if we use this like this only, in that we cannot use the water completely, we cannot use the air completely. Okay, we cannot use the sunlight completely. Why? Because so much amount of air, water, sunlight is available. So if we use these resources like this continuously, so it will be not completed. Okay, it will be not be completed in the future. Okay, so these type of resources are called as inexhaustible resources or renewable resources. Okay, and what is the meaning of inexhaustible resources? Now we will discuss. Is wood an inexhaustible resource? Think about the using wood for making furniture. Okay, so what will happen if all the forest were cut down and the wood was used for various purpose? How long do you think it would take to grow up the forest again? Human cut down all the trees, there would be big change. Here some of them are: the oxygen level on the earth would drop because most of the plants that produces oxygen are in the rainforest. So there would be a less food grown each year, and because many of our food like coffee, beans and banana are grown forest, so many plant species would be lost because more than 75% of the species are in the rainforest. So many animal species would go extinct because they would lose their habitats. Okay, next, decreasing in the percentage of rainfall. All the forests are cut down, it causes soil erosion. So many medicines are prepared from the trees and forest. So all the forests are cut down, then then there would be a non-availability of medicines also. Okay, how long do you think it would take to grow the forest again? The growth of forest mainly depend on rainfall. So trees take at least 30 years to reach their full size. There are many resources like trees which will be depleted if we don't make judicious use of them. So if we not use this type of resources carefully, then what happen? These resources will be extinct from the earth. Means this way we cannot see any trees on the earth. So that's why use the trees and wood carefully. Okay. So how long the fossil fuels like petroleum will be available? Is it inexhaustible? Today, our consumption rate of petroleum for excess that of the rate of its formation. Okay, so Earth takes more than 1000 years to form oil we consume in one day. So today our consumption rate of petroleum is more when we compare its formation. Means our consumption rate of petroleum will be more when we compare it with the formation of petroleum. So Earth take more than 1000 years to form oil. Okay, so Earth take more than 1000 years to form the oil, so that we consume in one day. So we already consumed half of the total reserves of the oil. So it would be more and more difficult to extract the oil in the future. So it may be exhausted around another 50 to 100 years. So it is an exhaustible source. So this petroleum is one of the exhaustible resource. Why? Because our daily life is depend on the petroleum. We are using the petroleum for different purpose, our daily life. So what are the uses of petroleum, we will discuss in our next topic. So if we for the formation of petroleum, it will take 1000 years of time. So that's why for the formation of petroleum, it will take thousands of year time, but we are using that in very only one day like that. Okay, so that's why use the petroleum products carefully. So if you use the petroleum like that only, so in our future we don't get any petroleum. So that's why, so we can say this petroleum is one of the exhaustible resource. This petroleum is one of the example for exhaustible resource. We will discuss about